What he does, there's a constant change of pace. He's on balance.
He controls every facet of the game, from scoring to rebounding to passing to just his approach when he gets the ball.
Literally, he'll walk the ball up the court 10 straight times and get to his spot every single time. Just because of his pace. He knows when he comes off a pick and roll, if they're hard showing or if they hedging or if they dropping the pick and roll, he know I could turn the corner because I got this shoulder, and I know the third line of defense, when I get there, if I just slow down, use my pivots, not even jump, just the Euro 1, 2, this guy's flying by. He's flying by every time. It's the mind.
Welcome back to StarHush, where we break down the biggest bombshells. And today, we've got one of the most shocking, game-changing, and downright bizarre trades in NBA history. Luka Doncic, yes, Luka Magic himself, has officially been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, sending shockwaves through the league. The Dallas Mavericks, they walked away with Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a single 2029 Lakers first-round pick, a return that's already raising eyebrows across the NBA world. Was this a genius move or a franchise-crippling blunder? We'll get into the Mavericks side of things later, but for now, let's talk about the man of the hour, Luka Doncic. At just 25 years old, Luka has already locked in 5 first-team All-NBA selections in his first 6 seasons, a feat only Tim Duncan and Larry Bird have pulled off in the modern era. He literally carried the Mavs to the NBA Finals, proving he's a generational talent. So why on earth would Dallas move on from him? Well, according to insiders, the Mavericks weren't completely sold on Luka's long-term future because of concerns over his conditioning and weight issues. Could that really be enough to let go of a once-in-a-lifetime talent?
They don't think they can win with him. They're worried about the kind of defense he plays. They're worried about the kind of way he keeps himself in condition.
So why did the Mavericks really let go of Luka? According to reports, they were growing frustrated with his conditioning, claiming he consistently shows up to training camp out of shape. This season alone, Luka reportedly tipped the scales at 260 pounds, which they believe directly contributed to his injuries. Because of this, the word around the league is that Dallas was hesitant to hand Luka the Supermax contract. But did they just give up on a future multi-time MVP? Did they really just let go of a generational talent over some weight concerns? Let's talk facts. Last season, the media hyped up Anthony Edwards as the next Michael Jordan. But in his first 6 years, Jordan put up historic numbers, one of only 2 players in post-merger history to average over 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. And who's the only other player to match that? Luka Doncic. It wasn't until year 6 that Jordan hit the level of superstardom we now associate with his name. And yet, the Mavericks still weren't sold on Luka's potential. Instead, they pushed the defense wins championships narrative, taking an indirect shot at their former star. But let's not pretend the Mavs were some powerhouse last season. Kyrie Irving was an elite second option, but after him, the rest of the roster was filled with role players, and we've got the stats to prove it. In the 2024 NBA Finals, Luka led the team in literally every major category, averaging 29.2 points, 8.8 rebounds, 5.6 assists, and 2.6 steals per game. The next highest scorer, Kyrie with 19.8 points. After him, PJ Washington with just 10.8. Beyond Luka and Kyrie, the Mavs had no real playmaking help, and it showed. As a team, Dallas averaged the fewest assists per game in an NBA Finals since the 2015 Cavaliers, when LeBron was basically fighting the Warriors alone without Kevin Love and with Kyrie injured after Game 1. And let's be real, Luka wasn't just putting up numbers, he was making history. Throughout the 2024 NBA playoffs, Luka joined an elite club, becoming just the 4th player ever to average at least 28 points and 8 assists per game on a conference champion. The only other players to do it, Nikola Jokic, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. And guess what? All of them were at least 3 years older than Luka when they pulled it off. But despite all of that, the Mavericks are still standing firm on their claim that Luka is not a superstar they can depend on. And at this point, it feels like they completely lost their minds. Brian Windhorst just dropped a bombshell, revealing that an anonymous NBA All-Star texted him with this jaw-dropping message. Do you know how much the Mavericks must have hated Luka? Think about that for a second. We had no idea how deep this went, but the signs were always there. Take a look at this moment. Luka, fresh off leading the Mavericks to the 2024 NBA Finals, is sitting with his dad, cracking open a beer to celebrate their shocking Western Conference Finals win. But look closely. The disdain for Luka was right there, plain as day. Instead of celebrating their franchise player, Mavs assistant GM Michael Finley stood there looking like Luka had just committed a crime. The awkward tension was undeniable. This is the guy who carried your franchise to the finals, the one who took down Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals in just 5 games. And Luka didn't just win, he completely outclassed Ant in every single category. More points per game, more assists per game, more rebounds, more steals. Luka dominated with nearly 8 more points per game than Edwards. These are the legendary Michael Jordan-style moments that define greatness. A true superstar doesn't back down when the pressure is at its highest. He steps up and proves the doubters wrong. And let's not forget, Luka's been doing this since day one. In his first ever playoff series against the 2020 Clippers, who had a fully healthy Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, Luka pulled off one of the coldest game winners in playoff history. Back to Doncic. Doncic pulls up. Three-pointer. Bang. The Mavericks lost that series, but that moment cemented Luka as a future legend. At just 21 years old, he led the team in points, rebounds, and assists, putting up a ridiculous 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 8.7 assists per game against 2 of the best defensive wings in NBA history. And now the Mavericks are acting like none of that matters. They've convinced themselves that Luka will never stay in shape, so instead of keeping the generational star, they cashed out while his trade value was high. But what are we even talking about here? Because here's the wildest part. The entire NBA was blindsided by this. Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans, not the analysts, not even the league itself.
I'm told Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, the players, coaches, a lot of people on both sides with the Mavericks and Lakers had no idea. I can assuredly tell you it's a fact. LeBron James had no idea this was coming. Anthony Davis had no idea this was coming. I'm told Luka Doncic is still stunned about this trade.
This trade wasn't just shocking, it was downright confusing. Reports are saying that other teams didn't even know Luka was available. Let that sink in. Dallas didn't put Luka on the open market. They didn't shop around for the best offer. They didn't even try to get the absolute max return for their franchise player. Instead, they locked in on Anthony Davis and said, yeah, that's good enough. But was it? Absolutely not. By keeping things under wraps, Dallas robbed themselves of the chance to get more first-round picks or even a young, rising star like Austin Reeves. Instead, they settled. They rushed. They pulled the trigger without testing the waters. And while nobody is denying Anthony Davis is an elite player, let's be real, he's not Luka. And for a player of Luka's caliber, Dallas could have and should have gotten more. Meanwhile, the Lakers just pulled off one of the greatest trade heists in NBA history because they don't need to win this year to justify this move. Sure, the Lakers are currently 5th in the West, and a playoff run featuring LeBron and Luka is going to be must-watch TV. But here's the real play. They're thinking beyond this season. LeBron has been telling people for years that his dream teammate is Luka Doncic. The Lakers just made that dream a reality, and that changes everything. Think about it, LeBron is still playing at an elite level, but he's 39. This move could extend his career. Maybe LeBron sticks around for another year or two just to see what he and Luka can accomplish together. And maybe, just maybe, the Lakers add a third star or build the perfect championship core around him. But here's the biggest win. The post-LeBron era is no longer a concern. The Lakers just locked in their next franchise superstar. Luka is only 25 years old, and his best years are still ahead of him. And now, the Lakers are betting that Luka's injury struggles this season were just a fluke. Meanwhile, the *** Mavericks are making one of the riskiest bets in NBA history. They're gambling that Luka is going to fall apart. For Dallas, this is a nightmare waiting to happen. They are 8th in the Western Conference and need to win right now. They don't have time to build. They don't have years to develop a young core. They've loaded up on aging veterans and put all their chips on a win-now roster. Look at this lineup. Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, and yes, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively are solid pieces. But that core isn't built for the long haul. I'm not trying to overreact, but let's call it what it is. This could go down as one of the worst trades in NBA history. Dallas took one of the most dominant young superstars in the game and traded him for an aging roster that has no clear long-term future. His trade just gets weirder and weirder. The Mavericks claimed they were worried about Luka's durability, but let's be real. If they're concerned about injuries, why in the world did they trade him for Anthony Davis? Look, Luka has had some injury struggles this season, but if you take away this one rough year, he's actually been far more reliable than AD. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis has a well-documented history of missing games. In fact, his reputation is so bad that one of his listed nicknames on Basketball Reference is literally street clothes. And again, this isn't about AD not being a star. He absolutely is. The man is averaging 25.7 points, 11.9 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks per game this season. Those are elite numbers. And let's not forget, Bubble AD was a crucial piece in the Lakers' 2020 championship run. But here's the problem. He is not Luka. When you trade a generational superstar like Luka Doncic, there are only two justifiable reasons to do it. You believe the new roster you're building will win a championship immediately, or you're blowing it all up, hitting the reset button, and going all in on a full rebuild. The Mavericks have done neither. They didn't create a title contending roster. They didn't stockpile draft picks for the future. Instead, they're left with a team that isn't better than the Thunder, who are younger and more dynamic. They're nowhere near the Nuggets, who have a 3-time MVP in Nikola Jokic. And in the East, the Celtics, fresh off a championship, are miles ahead. This is the squad Dallas is stuck with. They don't have a war chest to trade assets to improve this roster. This is it. This is who they're rolling with. Meanwhile, Luka just got hit with the biggest career wake-up call of his life. And now, he's got one thing on his mind in a Lakers uniform: revenge.
Honestly, the value that he brings to the franchise, to the NBA, to this organization, it's immeasurable. I feel like we're going to be champions, and it will be because of Luka. So I'll be honored to deliver that champion.
Luka Doncic isn't just thinking about proving he's a generational talent anymore. He's out to prove he's one of the greatest to ever step on the court. This trade didn't break him. It lit a fire under him. He's not just another young superstar. He's a once-in-a-lifetime player who now has something to prove. And let's be real, when Luka has a chip on his shoulder, there's no stopping him. The Mavericks just woke up a sleeping giant, and he's about to make them pay. So what do you think? Did Dallas just make the worst trade in NBA history? Will Luka dominate in LA and take the Lakers back to the top? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more. See you in the next one.